Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, incredibly high-stakes paradigm shift that is literally happening right under our noses. I'm so thrilled you're here because the reality is, the modern company structure as we know it, it's already been rendered completely obsolete by AI. We're going to break down some fascinating insights from Peter Diamandis and Saleem Ismail on how we can actually survive this huge transition together. Think about it like this. The comet has already hit. Right now, legacy companies are practically dead walking. Why? Well, because the economic rules that defined business for almost a century have completely inverted. Back in 1937, an economist named Ronald Coase came up with this theory that large human hierarchies were totally necessary because internal coordination was just cheaper than going outside the company. But today, AI has driven the cost of execution and coordination down to, well, near zero. So here's our roadmap for today. 1. AI killed the modern company. 2. The organizational singularity. 3. The AI intelligence stack. 4. The digital twin playbook. And 5. The new org chart. All right, let's kick things off with section 1. AI killed the modern company. Let me ask you a provocative question. Could two people armed with an AI like Claude replicate your highest margin business line in a matter of months? Seriously. Because if you're sitting on juicy margins right now, you are basically open season for a couple of smart kids with AI. I mean, think about legacy companies. You have to schedule a meeting with IT, a meeting with legal, branding, just to build a simple website feature. Today, it is literally cheaper to just build the feature using AI than to actually sit in a room and have a human meeting about the feature. So we have this massive impedance mismatch. The legacy paradigm, it's completely drowning in heavy coordination costs, totally bogged down by human-to-human workflows. These massive companies are paralyzed because, 20 different people have the power to just say no to protect the brand. Meanwhile, on the flip side, the new exponential organization, or EXO 3.0, is organized purely around intelligence. They rely heavily on agentic workflows. And that simply means AI agents are acting independently to execute tasks for you. It makes execution nearly free, which allows startups to just say yes to trying absolutely everything instantly. Moving right along to section 2, the organizational singularity. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is the word recursive. The organizational singularity is essentially the point where the company structure itself is constantly self-improving at the workflow level. So instead of organizing a business around human bosses and layers of middle managers, you organize the whole thing around a core engine of intelligence. But here is the stark reality of where we are right now. Over 80% of AI projects inside legacy companies are failing miserably, just completely missing the mark. You might be wondering, why is that? Well, it comes down to what we call the radio on TV metaphor. When television was first invented, they didn't really know what to do with it, so they literally just put radio announcers in front of a camera. They didn't understand the new medium at all. And honestly, that's exactly what legacy companies are doing with AI right now. They're taking this old, clunky, human-to-human workflow full of legacy bottlenecks and just trying to shove AI into it. It doesn't work. You absolutely have to start with an AI-native environment. Now, you might be thinking, do we even need companies at all if AI is doing all the work? Actually, yes, and it's because of something called the fiduciary wedge. We still need organizational structures primarily as legal liability containers, kind of like a special purpose vehicle. See, there's a huge gap between what an AI can autonomously execute and, well, who actually goes to jail if the AI breaks the law. Humans are absolutely needed to provide that crucial judgment and bridge that legal liability gap over whatever the AI decides to do. So if the company is essentially just a legal container, what exactly goes inside it? That brings us to section 3. The AI intelligence stack. These 5 steps actually mirror the military's OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. Okay, picture this. Imagine a competitor suddenly launches same-day delivery. Immediately, sensing agents flag the news. Next up, interpretation agents analyze the data to see if this is an existential threat to your business. Then, decision agents step in and might propose buying a startup to counter the move. From there, orchestration agents immediately start hunting for target companies and prepping M&A documents. And finally, learning agents evaluate if past M&A strategies even worked. What used to take human executives literally months of agonizing meetings now happens in just a few hours. It's wild. But hold on, You can't just let this AI stack run wild. It has to be wrapped in what we call a govern and assure harness. I mean, we've all seen the crazy news stories about rogue AI agents accidentally deleting massive amounts of corporate data, right? To stop that from happening, you absolutely need trusted evaluations, searchable logs for every single agent, granular rollback capabilities so you can instantly undo a mistake, and, of course, a human review queue. The role of humans fundamentally shifts from doing the day-to-day work to overseeing this harness. And to keep your legal department from completely losing their minds, every single agent gets its own digital passport. This passport contains metadata that dictates exactly what that specific agent is allowed to touch. It sets strict liability constraints and policy-controlled APIs, which is really just a fancy way of saying strict rules for how the software talks to other software. If an agent tries to act outside its passport, bam, the Govern and Assure wrapper instantly flags it for human review. Okay, so how do we actually build all of this without bankrupting the current company?
Let's dive into Section 4, the Digital Twin Playbook.
All right, this is the rewrite methodology. It's a step-by-step survival guide. First, you start with backcasting, which is using a large language model, or LLM, to envision your perfect AI native future and then working backward from there. Then you score your organizational drag. Next, you map your workflows. And listen, this part is absolutely crucial because there is massive, unwritten, tacit knowledge hidden in your employees' heads. Actually, get this. Right now, almost half of Gen Z workers are reportedly sabotaging internal AI by feeding it bad data because they're terrified for their jobs. So you have to very carefully map the real workflows before you can even think about automating them. Now, if you take away one thing from this, let it be this. Do not touch your core business. Seriously, the corporate immune system will attack and kill the innovation before it even starts. You have to build this AI-native digital twin at the absolute edge of your company. It's exactly like how Nestlé had to build Nespresso in a totally separate building outside the mothership because the internal friction was just way too high. You fork your data, build the parallel twin at the edge, and just quietly move boring workflows, like invoice processing, over one by one. And the magic happens once you get that digital twin processing workflows at the edge because that recursive learning loop kicks in. Since the system is constantly self-improving, estimates right now are projecting a staggering 100 times performance jump per year. Let that sink in. If it took 100 days to process something manually, the digital twin will eventually do it in a single day.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the new org chart.
Okay, here's the brutal reality of what the new org chart is going to look like. The C-suite, they transition almost entirely to dashboard oversight and validating agent decisions. The coldface, the entry-level workers, they'll shrink by about 20%, but the ones remaining will become heavily AI-enabled super producers. But the massive compression, that happens in middle management. That layer is going to be cut by roughly 60%. Middle management's traditional role of just gathering and coordinating data is completely dead. The managers who stay will shift entirely to complex problem-solving and exception handling. And to make sure we're training future leaders, companies are going to have to rely heavily on active apprenticeship programs. Ultimately, surviving companies are going to run on roughly 20 to 25% of the human workforce they have today. I know that sounds intense, but there is a silver lining here. We are likely going to see a massive Cambrian explosion of new startups simply because a tiny, focused team can now produce massively scaled billion-dollar outputs. Because of this incredible hyperspeed, the traditional static 5-year plan, it's dead. Annual planning, dead. Quarterly reviews are dead. Organizations will no longer be these rigid, static structures. They're going to be dynamic protocols that adapt to real-time data, kind of like an amoeba constantly changing shape. And to prove just how incredibly fast things are moving, Saleem Ismail and Peter Diamandis aren't even releasing their upcoming book on this topic as a traditional printed text. No way. They are releasing it as a live, dynamic Claude AI skill. That way, it can update itself every few days as the underlying technology changes. How cool is that? So let's reiterate this really powerful warning. If you try to disrupt your legacy company from the inside, the corporate immune system will kill the innovation and you will fail. It's just a fact. You have to fork the data and build a parallel AI-native entity at the edge. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. The comet has already hit. The technology is already here, and your high-margin businesses are absolutely vulnerable right now. So what's it going to be? Are you going to take the initiative to build an AI-native digital twin at the edge of your company today, or are you just going to wait around to be disrupted by a 2-person startup tomorrow? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep exploring and keep learning.